Welcome to Retro Inebriation. We don't know what to do with ourselves since we don't have our regular setup.
Right. We're doing another
non-video game conversation.
Right.
Brent is currently sober.
Correct.
Although he's drinking.
I am drinking, but
yeah,
not drunk. So,
since we spent the majority of our last conversation talking about the PlayStation 1, and that being Brent's favorite console of all time, which I'm still a little flabbergasted by.
no, it's the best one.
You're allowed to like whatever console you like. Again, I was just shocked by it. We thought we would discuss my favorite gaming console today, which I'm sure Brent will have a few choice words for, because we're going to be talking about the GameCube.
Right. Which I would have assumed it was the Super Nintendo.
You would have thought Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
I love the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo, when it comes to nostalgic factor, has got to be the biggest. The NES was an important console for me, but I didn't get the NES on release. I think I got the NES for either a birthday or Christmas a year or two after. So I didn't have the NES for the whole span of the console generation. But the Super Nintendo, I got practically day one. It was a gift for both my brother and myself. We jointly owned the system, which, I mean, you had siblings. I don't know if you ever dealt with that whole, this is both of your responsibility, so there's always the fighting over, and I get to be player one, or this is mine, or it's my turn.
The player one was never an issue. The older person was player one. That was always...
That was the same at my household.
If I played with my little sisters, I was player one. If my big brother, I just knew. I'm player two. Like, you know.
I'm glad to hear that was true at other households, because I just thought I was just the biggest asshole in the world, because I always demanded, it's mine. I am player one. Didn't matter if it was my console or not. But yeah, the whole sibling thing, it was we owned it from day one all the way through the end of the life cycle. So the Super Nintendo definitely has a lot of nostalgia factor there. It has some great games. I love the system, and of course I'm a Nintendo fanboy in general. Then after that, like I said, I got the PlayStation. But for me, the weird thing with the PlayStation was I got it at the beginning of the generation. I had an original PlayStation, even the one that had that little auxiliary port on the back that you could hook up the AR code cheats and whatnot to, that little serial port. But I went off to college, and I didn't want to take a gaming system with me because I didn't want to get distracted by it. And I ended up buying gaming consoles while I was off at school. I got my Dreamcast when I was in college and whatnot. But I didn't have the same investment in the PlayStation. And then after that, Nintendo finally went to digital, which was my gripe with them in the first place. That's why I didn't get a Nintendo 64. So when the GameCube came out, I was excited, but I wasn't fully back into gaming yet. So the GameCube was kind of like my reintroduction to gaming. I rediscovered my love of gaming with the GameCube. And I think that's why, to this day, it holds such a dear place in my heart. Because if it wasn't for the GameCube, I probably wouldn't be into gaming the way I am today.
So, I did not own a GameCube until after me and my wife had been married for a few years. So I was 23 or so when I first got a GameCube. But I played a lot of GameCube games. I had a PlayStation 2. I think I've told you this before, that I used to swap we used to swap stuff with my buddy Jacob, who lived down the street. And I didn't have a PS2 at the time. He let me borrow his GameCube. No. He had PlayStation 2. My brother had a GameCube. I let him borrow my brother's GameCube. I borrowed the PlayStation 2. And my buddy Eric had...
Without a memory card.
Yeah,
we heard that story.
Yeah, it's a good story. My buddy Eric had a GameCube. I would go over to his house all the time and play the GameCube. So I played a lot of GameCube games as they were coming out, but I've never owned myself a GameCube, other than right before my house got broke into and everything else. So, but so it doesn't have a place in my video game history or my hierarchy or whatever. They're games that I love. My favorite Zelda of all time is on the GameCube, which is Wind Waker. Breath of the Wild was really close, but Wind Waker is just charming.
Did you play the remake for the Wii U?
I did.
Any thoughts on that one?
I prefer the one on the Wii U because I don't have to use that clunky controller.
And we knew this was going to be a point of contention during the video today.
That was when I was sitting down to play Wind Waker, and that was the first Wii U that I bought was the Wind Waker bundle with the Zelda gamepad, and it came with Wind Waker and everything. So that was one of the first games I played for it. And the first thing I thought was, oh my god, this is so wonderful to get to play this and not use that controller that I hate. I hate that
I'm going to let you go first because of how vehemently you speak of it. What are your issues with the GameCube controller? Because myself, like many other people, why the iterations keep coming out every new console. We're on, the 4th generation past the GameCube now, and they're still re-releasing that thing? Why do you dislike it so much?
Let me put points in its corner first, and the things that I think it does well.
Okay.
The way that you have the big green button, allows for certain party games, Super Smash Brothers and Mario Party and those type of things, to excel in a party type setting. Because if the person next to you that's never played a GameCube game, and you're supposed to tap a button super duper fast to make yourself
I wonder
run really
which
fast,
button you're supposed to tap.
I bet they can guess. And if they can't, you can just say the big green one. So
I love the fact that you still went down that road. Even if they can't guess that it's the giant button in the center of the controller.
So it works great for those. I think that's part of the reason that it works so well for Melee is because that's a party type
that's how
game.
you smash.
And and so sitting down with someone who's never
that's
played
not
that
inappropriate for those of you that aren't familiar with Smash Brothers, by the way.
Yeah, and being able to say, you use this button plus a directional button, you can do everything.
How are there not more memes about that online? Nintendo has an entire franchise called Super Smash Brothers. But yes,
Smash with your friends.
You
and 8 of your friends can smash together. Anyways.
I definitely agree with that sentiment, though. I think that button, especially when it comes to a novice, is very, very handy. Very
so
helpful.
I think that it excelled. I don't like the general.
Are you done with the positives?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I thought I'd done well. Oh, okay. Well, I'll give it another one that's not actually to do with the controller, but the Wavebird was the wireless and broke huge ground.
The Wavebird is the very first party wireless controller for a console. Love that.
Yeah. So, even though that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the layout and feel of the controller, it was something that the controller brought to the table.
The first time I could play video games like this.
Right.
Without a wire dangling down my face.
I had wireless Mad Cat controllers.
Yeah, there were plenty of third parties before then. I think even as far back as the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation.
Yeah, the first PlayStation
had a wireless. And now, of course, everything does. I have wireless Super Nintendo controllers. Yeah. All right, so go ahead. Hit us with your negatives.
But the wonky little purple button.
And I agree with him on this one too. The Z button on the GameCube is just it's worthless.
It's awful.
I like the triggers. I do like the L and R buttons.
There's too much give on.
There is tons of give.
Yeah, there's so much range of motion. If I'm playing something, if I'm playing Resident Evil and I want to shoot, I don't have to move it that far to pull the trigger. I don't like the yellow the C joystick or whatever they was when they called it, the little yellow bullshit. It was very.
What was the problem with the C joystick?
It was inconveniently placed and it.
All right. Well, here comes our biggest point of contention.
Yes.
Is that Brent's layout, his preferred layout, is the PlayStation controller with the analog sticks, obviously not the old school. He likes both of his joysticks to be down at the bottom like this. The majority of controllers, because it's not just the GameCube, you see it in the Switch now, you see it in the Xbox controllers, have one of the joysticks up top and the other one down below. Because when you're playing traditional games, your finger's going to be on the joystick and your finger's going to be on the buttons. So I don't understand what the gripe with the C is. I think the C was actually kind of a cute throwback, even though I was a Nintendo 64 kid. I love the fact that because that one had the 4 C buttons, that's why they called that joystick C. That's why it was the color yellow. They were trying to bring that over from the other console. I thought that was a nice feature. I just like the feel of it in general. I like the handles on the side, because again, the Nintendo 64 never felt quite right.
No.
And Sony was the one that added handles. That's one that I got to give them credit for, because if it wasn't for the PlayStation, we would have still had the dog bone look to our controllers. And I liked having the handle, so when GameCube introduced theirs, they felt very just dynamic. My hands fit around them very nicely. It's just always felt comfortable. I really, really enjoy that controller.
I've never liked. What are some of your? Because the biggest thing that defines any video game console
The games.
is the video games.
Of course.
The
GameCube was, they still had a decent balance when it came to your first party and your third party games, even though they destroyed so many relationships with the Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64, most third party developers had the exact same issue that I did with Nintendo, and that's the fact that they weren't
the most notorious being Square.
Yes, they wouldn't move past cartridges. You couldn't fit a game like Final Fantasy VII on a cartridge, therefore they went with Sony. Who could blame them? Made perfect sense, it was a great move for them. So they lost a lot of their third-party support during that era. The GameCube did an amazing job of bringing back a lot of that third-party support when they had lost so much. There's always been the bounce back and forth, and to be honest, it's not the Wii so much that killed it. The Wii U cemented that. Like it hasn't been until the Switch that they finally started getting it back. Because if you notice, every one of their conferences are always about, and we have all these third parties that are going to back us, and then nobody shows up.
Right.
The Switch is the first time we're actually seeing the third parties that they've called out actually developing software for the console. So we had this huge hiatus where the Nintendo 64, there wasn't a lot of third-party support. The Wii, aside from shovelware, didn't get a lot of third-party support because the console wasn't powerful enough.
And a lot of it has to do with piracy, too. The piracy on the Wii was rampant. And they didn't want to put their game on the console because it was so easy to pirate that...
I think that's funny considering how hard it was to pirate games for the GameCube.
Yes.
That Nintendo went in such an opposite direction. One of the reasons they used those microdiscs in the first place. And they burned them backwards. Supposedly their burning process was not the traditional...
I've heard that. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but I've read articles on it where they literally came up with an entirely different process for burning it, just so if people did crack it, that they still wouldn't be able to do it without creating their own hardware to actually burn the discs. So they went to so much trouble to make sure that you couldn't for the GameCube, and then they gave it up with the Wii. But to backtrack a little, just to stay on point, Nintendo 64, Wii, Wii U, horrible third-party support in terms of consistency. Again, the Wii had a ton of it, but most of it was shovelware. But the GameCube did a really good job of bringing it back. We had Beyond Good and Evil, Eternal Darkness, Capcom porting over all of its Resident Evil games. Yeah. That was uncanny. They completely remade the first Resident Evil for them and then came out with Resident Evil 0. At the time, those were GameCube exclusives. You couldn't get those on other consoles. Resident Evil 4 first came out on the GameCube before it came out anywhere else. The fact that they were able to lure all these third-party people back and that they were successful with it too, that these games did so well that they either continued to develop for them or started porting them out to other consoles once their exclusivity contracts were over. It was such a breath of fresh air, because Nintendo 64 got me really, really worried that they burned those bridges, that they didn't just say, all right, for the time being, we're going to go to these other systems. I thought they weren't going to get it back.
Resident Evil 4 did something for me for the system that it needed. And if you remember when they were showing, the test footage and showing off the GameCube, they had this beautiful Zelda footage of Link, infamously.
Because everyone was so excited, we're going to finally get to see a grown-up version of Zelda the game. I'm not confusing the character with the princess. And when Wind Waker was announced, people were just devastated.
Yeah.
They were, how in the world could you give us this kiddie version of The
and-
Legend of Zelda when you promised us we were going to get a grown-up version instead?
Right. And people all the time would bash GameCube and say it's for kids. It's not for real gamers.
I can't stand that bullshit.
I said it all the time as a teenager.
I'm sure you do.
And all of my friends, my GameCube friends, my Nintendo friends would say, "Wait till you see Zelda. Zelda's gonna be the game that." And then of course, Wind Waker happened,
And you laughed at that.
I did.
And then it became your favorite Zelda game.
It's a great one. But when I was at Eric's house, which is where most of my GameCube and my teen years experience happened, I turned on Resident Evil 4. And I was like, this is the game that you guys need to be bringing up in these arguments. This game is fantastic. But first off, it's... The original Resident Evil 4 for GameCube and then on the PS2 is probably a top 25, 30 game ever.
Of all time.
It's
a fantastic game. I don't know if it would make it that high on my list, but it is very good.
It's so good. It's best Resident Evil by far. It's just a classic. So not only did it have that adult feel that people said the GameCube was lacking, but it was also just a fantastic game. And so that was something that pulled me in, that said this big adult story themed game that I felt was lacking on the GameCube. Resident Evil 4 was that door to me to say, we have...
Welcome back.
Right.
Yeah. Open arms. Come home.
Yeah. And so that was that game to me. And then I played other games that I liked, but that was the one that I just sat there and he fell asleep and I played late into the night and got further than he had been, and he woke up the next morning and I was still playing.
Yeah, it's great. I would definitely say it's my favorite in the franchise. I wouldn't put that. I wouldn't doubt that for a second, that it's that good of a game. And it definitely ranks up there. It's a solid game. And it was them being able to develop games like that for that system, because GameCube did have the family-friendly vibe to it. One of the things that I liked because of the portability, but it got mocked for all the time, is the lunchbox design. The fact that it's got the little handle on the back, that it's so tiny. I loved the fact that the thing was small, portable, never had any heating issues whatsoever because the vents literally ran straight through the machine, constantly keeping it cool. It was a beautiful design that got the job done, and you can never say that it was as powerful as the PlayStation 2 or the Xbox, but it held its own. It was really, really well done. While people can mock the game itself, when it comes to the sheer visuals of it, Star Fox Adventures, the last game that Rare made for the console, again, you can mock the game all you want to. I won't take any insult to it. But it's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous.
It is pretty.
There's a little bit of blood trickling out of the corner of your tongue where you're biting.
It's a good game. And I love Metroid Prime. Okay. However, one thing that I don't like is strategy guides take so much fun of exploring out of the equation.
Yeah, they do.
I remember sitting... I talked about how much I love Wind Waker.
Yes.
And I didn't use strategy guide, but I played Wind Waker. And when you would just be on your boat and you would just see an island and you just veer off and go to this island and maybe there's something there, maybe it's not, who knows? And you're just spending time on your boat out in the open sea. I loved. And my brother is playing through that game, and he is looks in his book. He sets his boat in the right direction
And just sails
and
to
just sails straight to the next destination. He's like, I'm just sailing in my boat for like 3 minutes before I get there. I'm like, but you're supposed to be exploring in your boat. Like, did you not just supposed to? No.
You're missing the point.
Just going from here to here is not fun. Like, just...
It's kind of, and I understand why people have a little bit more of a frustration with this point than the other ones that we just discussed. But when people talk about grinding in RPGs to get your character stats up,
yeah.
If you don't enjoy going out and experiencing, just because my Final Fantasy VI is the one that's always predominant in my mind, random battles if you don't like just going out there and fighting random baddies, seeing what kind of experience you get, what kind of, items you might pick up, why are you playing this game? Like that's the part that always baffles me. It's part of the game to go ahead and experience these worlds. If you don't like diving into these worlds a little bit deeper than just that surface level, I'm just going to run through this game and finish it as fast as I can, why are you playing it? And that's always baffled me. Because especially in these generations where, like you said, the story gets a little bit deeper and a little bit more, it has more flesh to it, I guess would be a good way to say it. You're going to have to go ahead and put in that time and that effort, or it's just not going to be any fun. And some people just totally miss the point. They either want to whip out a strategy guide, or they just want to go ahead and time trial it, basically. And that's not what those games are about. Play a platformer. That's what play a racing game. That's all about time. But if you want to go ahead and play one of these adventure games, one of these RPGs, live in the world a little bit. Feel it. I mean, that's how you get attached to the characters. That's how it's how it moves you.
Yeah.
And that's what I really liked about it. You go ahead and knock this game, but I'm sorry, I do to this day still really, really like it. The controls are a little wonky, but they were really starting to get a grip on the full 3D. And that's Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario Sunshine is a game where I can run around in that world and just experience it and have fun. I can go ahead and I can explore different areas. I can go ahead and re-enter the same level multiple times, and I'll find something new that I didn't see the time before. It's a place that I can really just get to know. That I can just have fun on that island and just experience it for what it is. Whether you like the flood or not.
I do not like Super Mario Sunshine.
I know this.
I have beat that game. I played all the way through that game. Because when I first got my GameCube, it was the only game that I had. But
I'm not the biggest fan of the boss battle. I never thought I'd fight Bowser in a jacuzzi.
I never felt like a Mario game. First off, particularly 3D Mario games, are set to this ridiculous standard. So that's issue number one. It's earned its ridiculous standard.
It has. One of the biggest issues with Sunshine is bookended by some of the best, at the time, Mario games that have ever been released. Super Mario 64 was praised, probably a little too much, but praised beyond belief when Nintendo 64 came out.
Yeah.
And then Super Mario Galaxy
is the best 3D Mario.
Agreed. Super Mario Galaxy is just that game is practically flawless when it comes to an action platform. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other entries. When I first got my GameCube, because like I said, I was late to the GameCube game in the first place because I didn't game much when I was in college. So therefore, I didn't buy one when it first came out. But because it got me back into gaming, you want to know what my introduction was?
What's that?
I bought 2 games when I first had it. You want to take any stabs in the dark? What 2 games did I get for the GameCube?
Super Mario Brothers Sunshine.
That's wrong, but that's okay. What else?
Mario Party.
Mario Party 4.
Aha!
Was one of the games that I got for it, which I actually absolutely loved. That was a great party game. And Smash Brothers Melee. Oh. That was my introduction to the GameCube. That's what got me back into gaming, was a party game and a fighting party game.
They're both great games. I like both those games. Mm-hmm. Did you have the microphone?
No, because 4 didn't have the microphone.
Well, yeah.
I think they introduced... Well, I did have it, and I have it now.
Okay.
My GameCube collection was one of those that was sort of hit when I was robbed. I didn't lose all of my GameCube stuff. But sadly, the microphone was one of them that was stolen. So yeah, I did get a replacement.
That's good.
Well, it's necessary for 6 and 7 if you want to play the entire games for the party. That and Karaoke Revolution. Which I'm surprisingly good at.
I believe you.
Except for Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. That was really, really hard.
What is the name of that Ninja Turtles game that I don't like, that I can never remember the name of, that I brought up in another video, and I couldn't remember the name of it? We had to have somebody post it in the comments.
I don't know.
If you remember what the name... That one's bad.
The one that you can't remember is
Yeah.
not a good one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brent. That's great. You know another one that you're not very good at?
What?
The one on the Game Boy.
I'm fine.
You never beat the first stage.
I could have.
You
The
claimed
pizza was right there.
You claimed you beat it several
The
times.
pizza was right there, Brian. It was so close.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up this
Yeah,
conversation.
we've probably been talking longer than we think we have.
Oh, we've been talking for quite a while.
What do you think? 34 minutes?
Not gonna. We can hazard a guess, but the audience is gonna find out because I'm gonna be doing cuts
Okay.
throughout it anyway. But yes, so there you have it. Brent's favorite video game console of all time is the PlayStation 1.
Yep.
Mine is the GameCube. We clearly have very differing.
Right.
It's different, not differing, right? We have various viewpoints. Obviously, I had to pull a Porky Pig. If I don't know what the word is, I'm just going to pick a different one. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and have a couple more of these conversations. So if you've enjoyed listening to us ramble, please tune in. If you haven't, watch anyway. I mean,
Yeah. And
Whatever
let
works
us
for
know if you like it. Let us know if you don't.
yeah, we might stop this entirely, or we might do more.
Yeah. So let us know if you want us to do something else.
Or give us a topic to talk about.
Yeah. Topics. That's all, folks.
Okay, just checking.
This only has 4% alcohol in it.
And
Right?
you've only finished a third of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Is everything look good in the camera? Do I need to clean there?
Do you need to clean? No, I think you're okay.
Okay.
Really, the only thing that's in the shot is us and like the photo in the back.
Okay.
Well, and your Ultimate Warrior and whatnot.
I haven't switched them out. Let me switch them out.
Why?
Because last time you were here, that's what I had was ball rocking.
The fuck does it matter?
Because they need to rotate.
Super Mario and the Pink Gorilla are in every one of the videos at my house.